Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Michael LaBella, Senior Portfolio Manager at Franklin Templeton. Mike, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Great to be here.
Last time we spoke was June of 2022. Time certainly does fly. Catch us up on what you've seen and what your outlook is for 2023.
Sure. So, there's been a large transformation in markets over the last few months where we've seen interest rates rise by over 300 basis points. And we've seen that not just in the US, but globally. It's been one of the fastest rises in rates, we've seen. And we've seen a clear impact on inflation. Inflation is starting to come down, and the market is certainly taking that as good news. And we've seen a large sentiment shift at the start of this year with equity markets around the world rallying. Our view, however, is a little bit more cautious. We think that the path to a soft landing is there, but we think it's going to be a little bit more narrow. And we think that the opportunity needs to be weighed with some of the risks. And when we think about the risk side, we think that the Fed is still going to be raising rates over the next couple of months. Chair Powell even alluded to that yesterday. And we also think that they're going to keep rates higher for longer. That's a disconnect in markets right now that I think they're going to have to appreciate, that we're going to continue to experience some economic slowdown.
Let's talk about LVHD, low volatility, high dividend. The name kind of says it all. Tell us more about the ETF and how you're looking to achieve those two goals.
Yeah, so the LVHD ETF was really designed to focus on more stable equity market exposure. So it's specifically designed for market environments like we've seen over the last year and a half, where volatility tends to rise. And the two core elements of it is, one, focusing on stocks that have sustainable high dividend yields. So those are companies that not only have high dividends, but have the earnings to support those dividends over time to make sure that they're not cut, but also paying very close attention to risk. So oftentimes what happens in markets is that investors can chase for yield, and sometimes the risk profiles of those companies may not align with the income that they provide. So we also focus on the least risky names in the underlying market. And that's really important because bringing those two components together is critical for the long-term sustainability. So the thing we like to say is it's sustainable yield over time.
So walk us through why right now is a good time to consider LVHD.
Yeah, well, look, when we think about the largest headwind to potential markets, it's inflation. And as inflation is coming down, there are still elements of inflation that are likely to be sticky, particularly because of the tight labor market that we're experiencing. So we think we're probably in a regime where we're going to experience higher than normal inflation, not just this year, but over the next few years. And in that environment, when you look back in the past, you see that higher dividend paying stocks tended to do well in inflationary regimes. If you looked at the 1970s, if you looked at the 1940s, other periods of high inflation, that's when dividends are actually a greater contributor to total return than they are on average. And that's likely the environment we're going to be in for the next couple of years.
So, Michael, when we meet again in June, what do you hope the headline's going to be?
Well, look, I hope we're going to have experienced a soft landing and the economy is firing on all cylinders, but hope is not an investment strategy. So we want to make sure that we are prepared and diversified. And I think that as much as the market hopes that this is going to be a straight line in terms of positive economic news, we think there's going to be a lot more zigging and zagging. And that's going to cause bouts of market volatility. So stay diversified, be prepared to kind of take advantages of those bouts of volatility, and you have to stay nimble in this market environment.
All right, Michael, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.